when an incredible millionaire unexpectedly entered her home. She revealed a touching secret. Lucy always thought her life was straightforward. Wake up, head to the diner, serve coffee, rinse and repeat. But everything changed the day she lost her husband. Now, at 33, she found herself stuck in a relentless cycle of long hours and sleepless nights, just trying to keep everything together for her 10-year-old daughter, Lily. As she wiped down tables in the dimly lit diner that afternoon, the familiar sounds of clattering dishes and murmuring customers spun around her like whispers of a life she still wasn't sure she recognized. The knock echoed through her meager apartment just as the sun dipped low, casting eerie shadows against the wall. Opening the door, she was taken aback. Standing there was Jack, a reclusive millionaire and renowned philanthropist she had heard of but never seen in person. He radiated an aura of confidence that made her instantly uneasy. "Can we talk?" he asked, with a warm but tentative smile. Confusion wrapped around her as they sat at her small kitchen table, the slight tremor in her hands betraying her composure. Jack launched into questions, each one peeling back layers of her guarded heart. "What are your hopes for Lily?" he inquired, and Lucy felt an odd mixture of gratitude and discomfort. How could a man like him even care about the dreams of a struggling waitress? Yet there she was, sharing not only her dreams, but her fears that at any moment, everything could collapse. Before she could collect her thoughts, he spoke again, his voice laced with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "I want to help," he said, seemingly reading her mind. But the idea of accepting charity made her stomach churn. Could she swallow her pride? Would accepting his assistance undermine her struggle to stand on her own 2 feet? A fire of doubt ignited in her gut as she fought against the notion that a handout could somehow change who she was, a determined single mother scraping by. Before she could voice her objections, a slip of paper slipped from Jack's pocket, fluttering to the floor. The name on it hit Lucy like a punch to the gut, a family name intertwined with the secret of her late husband's heritage, the very whispers she had shared with Lily in hushed tones. Dark memories surfaced along with a flood of emotion, the tangled threads of their past weaving an intricate web she was uncertain if she wanted to untangle. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As their eyes locked, the weight of Jack's proposition hung heavy in the air. Would he be a savior, or yet another reminder of her vulnerabilities? Waves of tension rolled through her. Accepting help could mean salvation for her and Lily, yet it might drown her pride in the deep end of dependency. The silence crackled with unresolved feelings, and as she breathed in the lingering scent of coffee and uncertainty, a pivotal choice loomed before her. Would she risk everything to embrace the unknown future Jack represented, or would she fiercely guard the armor she had built around her heart, desperately trying to protect both herself and her daughter? With their lives on the edge of a potential transformation, breaths held in anticipation, the air thick with unsaid words, an uncharted fate awaited them both. The silence lingered between them, thick with emotions unexpressed. Lucy could feel the weight of Jack's gaze, searching for understanding or perhaps reassurance that she wasn't he like so many others who had craved his help without reservation. A harsh inhale of breath reminded her of her reality, the constant struggle, the hope-soaked dreams for Lily, and the irreplaceable loss of her husband. Did she dare to unravel years of self-reliance? As she stared into Jack's eyes, a visceral wave of vulnerability washed over her. A flash of anger sparked within, demanding to know why a man like him wanted to pull her from the darkness. Why her? Why now? But there was a gentleness in his demeanor that flickered like a candle dancing against a gust. "I can't accept charity," she finally blurted out, surprising them both. The words felt armored, a defensive measure against the tide of uncertainty that threatened to sweep her away. Jack nodded, his expression portraying more understanding than she had anticipated. "I'm not offering charity, Lucy. I want to invest in your potential," he replied, leaning forward. "You have dreams bigger than your circumstances. You could turn this hardship into a platform, a way to build something extraordinary for both you and your daughter. The mental gears began to turn as Lucy weighed his proposition. What did he see in her? A waitress with calloused hands and tired eyes? Could she really be more than the sum of her struggles? An undertow of intrigue began to tug at her thoughts. What if she could harness her journey? What if her pain could birth resilience? But still, there lingered a fear that gripped her throat. Would she truly be able to transform? Or was this just another mirage? Let me help you, but we start with the truth. Who you are, what you've endured, and how that can empower you, Jack said, his voice calm yet firm. Lucy felt an odd comfort in his sincerity. He was unearthing parts of herself she had buried, and although it terrified her, it also excited her. A spark ignited deep within, a flicker of ambition wrapped in self-doubt. The notion of seizing her narrative both mesmerized and intimidated her. I'm just a waitress, she hesitated, but the words felt heavy and inadequate on her tongue. Jack's smile, didn't he falter? You're a storyteller. You have a daughter who needs a mother who believes in more than just survival. You can show her that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the raw material of strength. Her heart hammered wildly. Could she be that beacon, not just for Lily, but for herself as well? Images flashed before her. The diner's bright lights overshadowed by her dreams and aspirations, ever eluding her grasp. Each face in the diner blurred into a collective memory, a reminder of her past, the life she had built on stubbornness and pride. Then it hit her. What about the whispers of her husband's heritage? That tangled web of intrigue she had kept untold. What if unraveling those secrets was the key to embracing the future? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, igniting a deeper curiosity within. Now the choice lay before her, a chance to no longer be merely Lucy the waitress, but Lucy the visionary. So much rested in the balance, and while fear churned in her gut, determination began to rise like a phoenix under her skin. I'll consider it, she finally said, her voice steadier than before, yet laced with uncertainty. Jack's eyes brightened. That is all I could ask. As they spoke, a flicker of possibility ignited between them, mingling with questions Lucy had never dared to ask. What if Jack wasn't just opening doors to opportunities, but a passageway to understanding her husband's legacy? Within that possibility, she felt glimmers of hope and fear intertwined. Lucy gazed past Jack, letting the reality of her choice settle in. Little did she know, the shadows of her past were about to converge with her decisions, leading her to confront the very truth she had fought to keep hidden. The first step into this strange world of opportunity was just beginning, but as she would soon discover, more hidden secrets awaited her. Would she have the strength to face them head-on, or would the remnants of her fears cling to her like chains? The clock was ticking, and the next moment would demand more than she was prepared to give. Lucy felt the weight of her decision as she left the diner, each step heavy with the possible futures that waited ahead. The streetlights flickered on, cutting through the dusk, illuminating her path in stark contrasts, much like the thoughts that churned in her mind. She had agreed to consider Jack's offer, but what did that mean for her? The chill in the evening air wrapped around her, heightening her senses. Memories of late nights spent with her husband talking of dreams felt more vivid than before. They'd often imagined a life filled with possibilities. Now, staring into the abyss of her uncertain future, she felt unmoored. The steady rhythm of her waitress life had given her a sense of stability, but that stability was suffocating. A deep breath filled her lungs as she made her way home. Lily awaited her, a beautiful, innocent spirit who deserved a mother who dared to pursue her own aspirations. But how could Lucy possibly balance that with the chaos swirling inside her? In that moment of thought, she questioned if she was ready to allow the past to inform her ambitions. Once in her small apartment, she was met with silence. The kitchen felt sterile, waiting for warmth and life. She began to prepare dinner, chopping vegetables with calculated precision. Each slice was a measure of her resolve. What if she ventured beyond the waitress apron? What if Jack's belief in her potential sparked something she had forgotten existed within? Suddenly, the memories of her husband flooded her mind. His stories of his family's legacy, intertwined with lore and traditions, danced before her. Those tales she had dismissed as mere fantasy now possessed a weight of importance. Were they a guide, leading her back to her roots and towards a greater purpose? A chilling doubt crept up again. Could she navigate those waters without drowning in nostalgia or regret? As she set the table, her phone buzzed, slicing through her reverie. It was a text from Jack, a simple message asking if she had given any more thought to their discussion. A pang of anxiety shot through her. Did she really want to delve into those old stories surrounding her husband's ancestry? More importantly, did she have the courage to embrace an identity shaped not just by struggle, but by rich heritage? Dinner was a small affair, quiet save for the rhythmic sound of her utensils against the plates. Looking across the table, she remembered the laughter that once filled that space. Lily's cheerful chatter could be the catalyst for her own transformation. What if she wrote their story together as a way to honor what they had lost? Did she have the courage to unpack the tangled threads of her own past and weave them into a stronger future for both her and Lily? Days passed, each one colored by her growing resolve and fluctuating doubts. As she watched Lily play, she felt an urgency to ignite her own passions. She could write. She could be more than the waitress behind the counter. On a particularly difficult evening, trying to quiet her swirling thoughts, she found herself leafing through her husband's old journals. The ink was a treasure trove of stories, dreams, and aspirations, a mirror reflecting what she sought to discover within herself. Her emotions surged. It was time to confront not just her husband's legacy, but her own. And then, just as she turned a page, something fell out. A photograph, faded but clear. In it stood a man whose face resembled her daughter's, surrounded by figures Lucy didn't recognize. Who were they? Her heart raced. What connections were awaiting her unveiling? This moment felt monumental, but a knock on the door broke her concentration. Startled, she hesitated before opening it. Would it be Jack, there to further ignite her flames of ambition? Or someone else entirely who threatened to diminish her fragile hopes? The unknown lingered at her threshold, just as the revelations awaited deep within her heart. Darkness against light, fear against courage. With her hand hovering over the doorknob, she braced herself, asking the question that loomed large in her mind. Was she prepared for whatever lay beyond? As Lucy opened the door, her heart thumped heavily in her chest. She hesitated before embracing the moment that stood just beyond the threshold. The unexpected answer came in the form of a man, tall and poised, dressed sharply in a tailored suit that seemed out of place among the drab hues of her surroundings. His crisp features glimmered with an air of confidence that made her feel both intimidated and intrigued. "Lucy," he said, his voice smooth like silk. "I'm Jonah, Jack's colleague and friend. I've heard a lot about you." For a split second, uncertainty cracked her composure. How much did he know? Had Jack shared the depths of her turmoil? The past few weeks felt like a reluctant journey into her own psyche, a slow emergence from the shadows of her past life. Now standing in her own doorway, exposed and awkward, she fought against the rush of emotions that threatened to engulf her. "Hi. Come in," she finally said, stepping aside to let him pass. As he entered, she quickly assessed him. His polished demeanor radiated an energy that both compelled her forward and pulled her back. She closed the door behind him and then turned to face this unexpected visitor, who now stood in her living room, looking around as if he were studying some uncharted territory. "I hope I'm not intruding," Jonas said, his meaningful gaze resting on her. "No, it's fine," she replied, forcing a smile. "I was just, relaxing." Jonah's eyes flicked toward the bookshelf filled with her husband's journals and trinkets of old memories. "I can see you have quite an impressive collection here. Your husband left behind a remarkable legacy." His voice was laced with genuine curiosity. Lucy swallowed hard. The mention of her husband felt heavy, a reminder of both what she had lost and what she wished to regain. As if sensing her internal struggle, Jonah leaned slightly as he pivoted closer. "Jack mentioned you've been considering taking that leap into writing about your husband's heritage, perhaps?" Her instinct was to dismiss that suggestion, to protect the vulnerable spark of ambition struggling to ignite within her. Yet, standing before this polished entrepreneur, the part of her that yearned for more pushed against the instinct to retreat. "Yes," she managed, her voice softer. "It's been on my mind." "Good," he nodded approvingly. "Sometimes it takes someone nudging you toward your potential to realize the dreams you've held back." Lucy blinked, feeling the weight of those words echo in her heart. Her battles with indecision began to feel sharper in that brief exchange. The urge to embrace the flickering light of hope threatened to overpower her guarded instinct of hiding behind her past. What if I told you that your story could inspire others? Jonah continued, his tone encouraging, almost coaxing. There are many out there who share your struggles who would give anything to find their voice. He was saying things she'd thought, but had never voiced, not even to Lily. The moment felt akin to being nudged toward a precipice. The shimmering view of potential lay vast and abundant, but the fear of vulnerability was steep. What if I fall? She questioned, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Then you learn to pick yourself back up, he said matter-of-factly, fearless in his conviction. Look around you, Lucy. Your daughter is space for possibilities. She deserves the mother who dares to pursue her own ambitions. Those words sliced through the thick fog of doubt. Could she really shift from the shadows of her past and into the light of her future? The photograph tucked within her husband's journal re-emerged in her mind, a missing link, a story yet to be unearthed. Jonah turned slightly, a flicker of realization in his eyes. There's a possibility I could help you, Lucy. We could work together crafting your narrative, bringing it alive. The offer hung in the air. Her pulse quickened. Yet, a tiny voice whispered, calling for caution. Why was this man, with his polished suit and confidence, so invested in her journey? Caught between fear of the unknown and the spark of ambition she felt igniting once more, Lucy grappled with the crossroads. What path would she choose at this moment? And could she really unveil the story that was buried deep within her and her family? As she stood there, torn between risk and the warmth of potential, a sudden thought pierced through her mind. Could Jonah truly help her forge a new beginning? Or was this simply another distraction disguising itself as an opportunity? In her heart, she knew the answer was within her grasp. She just had to decide whether she was ready to take that first step. Would she accept Jonah's unexpected proposition, and what secrets awaited her in the making? Lucy felt the air thickening around her, her pulse thrumming steadily in response to Jonah's compelling proposition. The prospect of co-creating something meaningful sparked a flame inside her, pushing up against the tightly shut door of her insecurities. Can you really help me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. As she said it, she felt an unexplainable urge to step closer, to bridge the chasm of uncertainty stretching between them. She needed reassurance, a confirmation that this was real and not the fleeting echo of a dream. Jonah's expression softened further, an understanding glint dancing in his eyes. Absolutely. Writing is about discovery, Lucy. It's about understanding not just your story, but the stories of those around you. Together, we can carve out a narrative that celebrates your husband's legacy while empowering you to find your own voice. She studied him, looking for any hint of insincerity, but found only earnestness. In that moment, the enormity of her hesitation felt palpable. Here was a man who had stepped into her life uninvited, yet also with purpose, offering her a lifeline. Yet, the fear of stepping into the light weighed heavily on her mind. What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? The words tumbled out in anguish, revealing her inner turmoil. The past few weeks had been riddled with doubts, casting shadows over her thoughts. She had envisioned moments of empowerment, but they always dissipated when faced with their stark reality. Then we work on it together, he replied. Failure is just another step on the path to success. Each attempt teaches you something, and I believe you are more capable than you give yourself credit for. Her breathing slowed, an unfamiliar calm creeping in as she allowed his words to wash over her. A shift. She was torn between the dream she had locked away for so long and the comforts of complacency. She looked at the photographs on the wall, memories frozen in time. Traces of Jack's laughter, of joy that felt impossibly distant, flickered back at her. Tell me more about what you envision, she said, surprising herself with her willingness to initiate this dialogue. The thought of discussing her narrative ignited a thrill, twisting possibilities into a vibrant reality. Jonah's enthusiasm was contagious. Your journey, Lucy, it's not just about retrospect, it's about forward movement. Each page you write, every word you pen reflects not just what you've endured, but what's yet to come. It's an adventure waiting to be unraveled. The idea of intertwining her past with the potential of her future was intoxicating. Maybe the mere act of writing could be the transformative experience she needed. But still, strings of doubt clung to her heart, like cobwebs. Would she reveal a story worth sharing, or merely echo memories that haunted her? This feels daunting, she admitted. How do I even begin to express what I've lost and what I hope to gain? Start small, Jonah encouraged. What's one memory that captures your husband's essence? What made him who he was in your life? Write about that. Let the words flow without restriction. Lucy nodded, her mind swirling with memories. The day they met, the first time he held their daughter, the laughter shared over dinner. Each memory felt like a weight perfectly balanced between joy and sorrow. As Lucy took a step back from her swirling thoughts, clarity emerged. With Jonah beside her, perhaps she could turn her vulnerabilities into strengths. The promise of realizing her potential, however elusive, radiated an energy that felt nourishing. What if I embraced this process? She mused aloud, contemplating the depth of her emotions reflected in Jonah's eyes. The thought alone made her heart race. She could see traces of a new chapter waiting to be penned. Jonah's smile spread across his face. More than momentary validation, it was an affirmation that she hadn't felt in years. Then we write, Lucy. We begin this journey together, and there's no perfect roadmap, only the bravery to take that first step. His words reverberated within her, stirring the embers of determination. Each heartbeat felt louder now, a steady drum echoing through her veins, invigorating her spirit. But just as the thrill of possibility swelled within, a new fear rose up. Her life was a maze of responsibilities. Was she prepared to unravel the details embedded in her mind? Her husband's legacy entangled with her personal aspirations? There's something I need to consider, she said slowly, her thoughts racing. I need time to think on how to balance my responsibilities with this dream. Of course, Jonah replied, his posture shifting into a supportive stance. The decision is as important as the action. I'm here when you're ready. As the weight of uncertainty and opportunity coiled around her like a soft blanket, Lucy felt the spark of something akin to hope. Perhaps, for the first time in years, she could face her fears and consider the woman she could become. Tomorrow would bring a clarity she sought, but tonight, the door to her potential had been nudged ajar, and she stood on its precipice, ready to step into the unknown. Would she take that step, or would she let fear push her back into the shadows? As she thought this, a question began to form in her mind. Could she dare to invite the chaos of creativity into her carefully constructed world? Lucy woke the next morning with an unsettling mixture of excitement and trepidation swirling in her chest. The thoughts from last night pricked at her consciousness like a swarm of fireflies, illuminating the shadows that had lingered over her for so long. She rose early, the dawn breaking like new possibilities across the horizon. As she prepared her coffee, the familiar routine felt both comforting and constraining. Each step through her morning a splash of cream. The aroma rising was a reminder that the day ahead held the promise of change. But first, she had to confront the most formidable challenge, her own self-imposed limitations. Glancing at the kitchen table, an empty sheet of paper lay waiting, mocking her. There it sat, stark white and blank, mirroring her own uncertainties. It had no fear of failure, no past heavy with loss to weigh it down. Lucy poured her coffee and considered for a moment. What was stopping her from writing? What was on the other side of that initial blankness? The familiar images of Jack flickered in her mind, but she inhaled deeply, determined to focus on what lay ahead rather than on what was lost. His laughter, his insights, and the warmth of their partnership were all part of her narrative. But so was her path going forward, a journey not just of memories, but also of reclaiming her identity. She opened her laptop, fingers hovering over the keys as she fought against the instinct to retreat into the safety of inaction. The notion of what if loomed large, threatening to drown her in self-doubt. But she remembered Jonah's words, each attempt a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. With a swift downward motion, she began typing. It felt clumsy at first. Words tumbled out without rhythm, thorny and rough. Those memories, more vivid than she anticipated, began spilling onto the digital page. As she wrote about Jack's influence on her life, she realized she was also rediscovering facets of herself that had lain dormant. Lucy, find one simple moment, she reminded herself. A memory took root the time they danced in their living room. the music barely audible over their laughter. That was not merely a recollection of joy. It was the kind of moment that intertwined their spirits, firm yet fragile, a bond that transcended even death. As she wrote, she felt energy surge through her. The unease that clung to her began to dissipate, replaced with revelations. Writing was not merely an act of remembrance. It was a declaration of agency, an assertion of her existence beyond tragedy. But just as her enthusiasm sparked, a nagging thought wormed its way back into her mind. This required time. Each word pulled her deeper into reflection and vulnerability, yet on the surface, she still bore the weight of everyday life. How would she draw the line between the clenched fist of responsibility and the open hand of creativity? The realization hit her. She needed structure, a plan that didn't smother her hopes, but cradled them. Tension coiled in her stomach as she recognized the immediate demands on her time: work, her daughter, household responsibilities, each one a chain she had forged around herself. Find balance, Lucy, she whispered into her coffee cup, her voice barely audible. An image of Jonah flashed in her mind, his supportive stance, his eagerness to be part of this journey. She could hear him urging her to carve out time. But how could she do that when every minute seemed dictated by obligation? With growing resolve, Lucy opened her calendar. If she could commit a mere 15 minutes each day to write, free from interruptions, she could create a rhythm that balanced her life with her aspirations. One small commitment could unfold infinite possibilities. As her planning unfolded, a question echoed insistently. Would she dare open her heart and face the fears that potentially lay dormant, like a storm brewing beneath the calm? Perhaps this courageous little endeavor could pierce through the veil of her discomfort. With renewed purpose, she set a reminder on her phone. She would seize those 15 minutes, claim that space for her voice and her story. Gratification surged within her. It felt tangible, like the beginnings of transformation. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Jonah. Looking forward to our first writing session. Remember, it's all about the journey. But as Lucy looked down at her laptop, exhilaration gave way to an unmistakable twinge of doubt. Was she really ready to share what she was crafting with someone else? A chill crept over her as she realized she stood on the brink of revelation. Would she let the real Lucy emerge, in all her flaws, but also her strength? An echoing thought spun in her mind. Who would she be if she dared to share her true self? The crunch of responsibility loomed ahead, every decision still shrouded in uncertainty. By stepping toward unveiling her story, was she essentially treading on treacherous ground? There it was, a fork in the road. Embrace this unpredictable journey toward authenticity, or retreat to the familiar comfort of silence. The next morning arrived with a bittersweet sense of determination nestled within Lucy. She woke with the resolve to reclaim those 15 minutes, to embrace creativity as a vital aspect of her day rather than a luxury to be postponed. As she sipped her steaming coffee, she could feel the weight of unfulfilled potential still lingering, but each surge of anticipation was tempered by the reminder of her obligations. After settling her daughter in front of the television with a bowl of cereal, Lucy retreated to her study, a small, cluttered room at the end of the hall that had long been an afterthought in the home. Dust motes danced in the golden light streaming through the window, illuminating the piles of books and unfiled papers. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that this space would become a sanctuary for her ideas. Opening her laptop, she peered at the stats of her word count that mockingly displayed 0. Not today, she muttered under her breath, shaking off the hesitation. With conviction, she decided to turn her fears into words. She would write about doubt itself, the persistent shadow that loomed over creativity. As her fingers grazed the keys, she succumbed to a flurry of thoughts that swirled in her mind. She reflected on the times she had allowed fear to dictate her choices. The job she settled for instead of pursuing her passion for writing. The silenced ideas buried beneath parental responsibilities. The nights spent contemplating who she might have become had she dared accept the challenge of self-expression. Each thought transformed into a sentence, each sentence igniting another ember of realization. She was breaking down barriers, energizing herself with truth, daring to document the way fear could morph into a crippling prison. Yet, as the words streamed out, a creeping worry snaked into her mind. Could she confront these fears in front of Jonah? Would he see her as she truly was, flawed and still learning? With each keystroke, Lucy recognized that vulnerability could be a double-edged sword. The thought of sharing this raw aspect of herself was both terrifying and exhilarating. What if she revealed too much? Or worse, what if she fell short of the authenticity she sought to expose? Grappling with these insecurities created a volcanic pressure in her chest. She paused, allowing herself to breathe through the discomfort. The act of sharing was itself a journey, a pathway toward authentic connection that she had to traverse to emerge transformed. Suddenly, a notification on her screen shattered her focus, a message from Jonah. "Hey Lucy, excited for our session today. Let us share what we've written." Panic whirled within her. In the safety of her thoughts, she had scribbled freely, embracing her tumultuous feelings. But now, she felt the ground shift beneath her feet, her self-doubt resurfacing like a tidal wave. The push from Jonah's encouragement was both a motivating force and a suffocating pressure. What if he expected polished pieces of writing, constructive critiques? Would he dismiss her raw vulnerability as unrefined? With trepidation, Lucy pulled up the document she had just created. An unexpected sense of empowerment washed over her. Those were her words, her voice, the essence of her emerging self. She wouldn't allow fear to cast a shadow over the potential of connection. In that moment, she decided to embrace risk. She would send him her draft, unfiltered and unpolished, reflecting her truth. It was time to rise above the critique that plagued her, transforming fear into a conduit for growth and understanding that as she pressed send, exhilaration and anxiety intermingled in her body. The act of sharing her work, her very self, felt as though she had tossed a stone into a still pond. Ripples would inevitably form, but she had to be willing to embrace the flow ripple by ripple. An hour passed before Jonah's reply chimed into her inbox. It read, "Loved your honesty. Let us dig deeper in our session today." His words ignited a rush of warmth that cascaded through her. Here was someone who welcomed her authenticity rather than shying away from it. Yet, amidst this budding connection, a deeper question began to unfurl in her mind. Who was she becoming through this self-discovery? The implications of her choices loomed large. With the day stretching ahead and the writing session awaiting, Lucy felt the threads of growth intertwining with uncertainty. Would her journey toward authenticity continue to strengthen her resolve, or would it unveil double-edged truths she was unprepared to face? Just as her thoughts began to spiral, she felt a faint buzz of dread. If she was to truly delve into her narrative with Jonah, she would have to confront not only her fears, but also the shadows lurking in her past. The time had come to face the whispers of doubt that sought to undermine her blossoming potential. Steeling herself, Lucy prepared to navigate the more profound questions of her heart. What would she reveal about her journey? Would exploring her vulnerabilities bring her closer to understanding not only herself, but also what she desired in the intricate weave of her life? The moment of reckoning awaited, a threshold she had to cross with both trepidation and anticipation coursing through her. Lucy arrived at the cafe early, anticipation tinged with anxiety coursing through her veins. The warmth of the golden morning sunlight filtered through the large windows, casting a glow on the polished tables. She couldn't help but wonder if the brightness was a sign, an omen suggesting her burgeoning creative path. Yet, with each passing minute, the thrill of exploration mingled with the unsettling specter of her past fears. She had always been the one who hesitated, who second-guessed, and ultimately retreated. But today felt different. Today, she had committed to unraveling the layers of her identity, to stepping out of her comfort zone, laying bare her insecurities. The question lifting from her chest was no longer whether she could succeed at this endeavor, but rather how much of herself was she willing to reveal, each truth potentially unlocking a hidden room in her psyche. When Jonah stepped into the cafe, his good-natured grin put her at ease. Perhaps it was his palpable enthusiasm or the understanding twinkle in his eyes that encouraged her spirit. He slid into the seat across from her and pulled out his notebook, ready to dive into discussions that both excited and terrified her. "Lucy, your honesty was refreshing," he began, his voice earnest. "I loved how you expressed your struggle with doubt. It's something we all face." His response unclenched a small knot in her stomach, but a deeper question persisted. How much could she share before risking judgment? As they exchanged thoughts about their writing, she found herself caught in the tension of vulnerability. "Do you think writers are always so brave?" she asked, momentarily shifting the conversation back toward him. "Or do we just write bravely to mask our inner chaos?" Jonah leaned back thoughtfully, his brow furrowing ever so slightly. "I think we write to understand our chaos," he reflected. "The act of writing helps to clarify and confront our fears. It's not about perfection, it's about honesty." The weight of his words settled over her like a heavy blanket. In that moment, a realization struck. Her truth was not contingent upon being perfect or fully formed. It was messy, yet vital, an expression of who she was in all her flawed glory. She took a deep breath, courage emboldening her to share deeper nuances of her past, the repressed dreams, the years lost to expectations, and the creeping doubts that had often whispered silence into her ambitions. As she spoke, a sense of liberation surged through her. Each revelation seemed to shatter the invisible chains that tied her to that lingering self-doubt. Jonah listened intently, providing echoes of encouragement that enlivened her words. "What I truly fear," Lucy continued, warmth creeping into her cheeks, "is how others might perceive these fragments of me. What if my honesty opens me up to ridicule?" Jonah held her gaze, steady and grounded. "You can choose how much of yourself to reveal. But if you desire connection, true connection is part of the journey. Letting someone in means embracing the possibility of both acceptance and rejection. And without that, how can we grow?" In that exchange, she unearthed something vital, the understanding that exposure led to courage, and courage led to authenticity. As they shifted back to their writing, Lucy felt a newfound clarity rising within her. She began to see her past not just as a collection of failures, but as a rich tapestry filled with potential and experience. Her words started to flow more freely, unfurling a narrative not just about her fears, but also about resilience and growth. But just as confidence began to spiral into excitement, pangs of anxiety flickered back. How would this newfound honesty affect her life outside this cafe? What if her family, her friends, and the people she held dear couldn't embrace this new part of her? As the session drew to a close, Lucy felt invigorated yet uneasy. The dichotomy of exhilaration and uncertainty loomed large in her heart. Would she reclaim the fragmented pieces of her identity, stitching them together into a cohesive narrative of strength and vulnerability? Or would she retreat once more into the comfortable cocoon of complacency? Walking home, the weight of her thoughts hung heavy around her. The echoes of Jonah's encouragement resonated within her, yet unresolved questions clung like shadows, haunting but compelling. The real test lay ahead. How would she channel this transformation into actionable steps in her everyday life? For tomorrow, as she prepared to confront the challenges of her roles as a mother, a friend, and a writer, one stunning question remained. What would she sacrifice to be truly seen? Lucy awoke the next morning with a mixture of resolve and apprehension. The sun streamed through her bedroom window, beige light filtering through the sheer curtains, illuminating the untidy piles of laundry and scattered children's books. The contrasting calm of the morning provided no solace for the whirlwind of thoughts spiraling through her mind. She was still mulling over Jonah's words, each one a nudging reminder of the risks intertwined with honesty. Gazing into the bathroom mirror, she plastered on a smile, though internally the weight of maintaining that facade felt immense. Today she had decided to step into her roles with intention. As the kids bustled about, she prepared breakfast, too lost in thought to fully engage. Each clink of the dishes felt like a step toward her personal metamorphosis, but the worry lingered. Could she truly balance being the mother, friend, and aspiring writer she envisioned? After breakfast, she found herself surrounded by her children's energy and spontaneity. They buzzed like fireflies in a summer night, laughter erupting from every corner of the room. But as their joyous play reminded her of the present, it also forced her to confront her fears of inadequacy. Would they flourish if their mother was consumed by her past shadows, a fearful ghost of what could have been? As she cleaned up, Lucy's mind drifted to an upcoming community event. Friends had encouraged her to attend and share her newest writing pieces, yet the thought filled her with dread. What if her truth fell flat? What if her vulnerabilities elicited mockery instead of empathy? She exhaled sharply and discarded the self-doubt, recognizing that Elizabeth Gilbert's words echoed in the corners of her mind. You don't need permission to lead a creative life. Storming through her internal barriers, Lucy had a radical realization. Perhaps she could approach her writing like she approached motherhood. Focused, messy, passionate, and always learning. In each word written, she could find the connection she yearned for, not just with others, but with herself. After morning chaos settled, she seized her notebook and began to write. The words flowed unpredictably, reminiscent of the children's movement through the house, unrestrained and authentic. There was no outline, no guide, only the energy of her emotions wrapping around her thoughts. She engaged with memories, old wounds, and moments of joy, trusting instinct over perfection. Yet, as she penned down her truths, a sense of panic crept in, a brush with another fear, more insistent than those suffered before. What if by truly expressing herself, she alienated those closest to her? Would her vulnerability be met with acceptance or rejection? That evening, Lucy decided to share a small excerpt from her writing with her closest friend, Mia. They hadn't spoken about the depth of Lucy's struggles, but she sensed that unveiling the rawness of her current journey was necessary. They met over tea at their favorite little cafe, both comfortable chairs and familiar chatter wrapping around them like a cozy quilt. As Mia listened, her expression oscillated from surprise to empathy. Lucy found courage in her friend's reactions, encouraged by simple nods and contemplative questions. However, the magnification of her thoughts did little to quell the tension within her. What would Mia think of the unfinished pieces, the fears she had poured onto the pages? When Mia offered her insights, thoughts that echoed compassion and understanding, Lucy dared to feel the warmth of acceptance, yet a voice in her head still whispered disbelief. As they talked, the trepidation of opening up transformed into a powerful surge of vulnerability. Lucy, you have to take this step beyond the cafe, Mia urged, her sincerity shining through. Your writing is beautiful because it's you. Why should you hide it? Lucy considered this challenge, a bright ember igniting within her. It was one thing to be vulnerable and private. It was another to show it to the world. What if she faced every rejection as she faced her children? With patience, sincerity, and a belief that love would guide their way. As she departed the cafe, Lucy felt tethered to possibility for the first time, yet encircled by uncertainty. She recognized that taking risks meant facing rejection head-on, but also discovering unseen support waiting to embrace her. Tomorrow, she would have to dwell in the notion that true discovery comes from stepping outside her comfort zone, towards the bright, uncertain path of self-revelation. How much authenticity would she unveil to illuminate her spirit amid those who knew her? In the quiet of her home that night, as her children snuggled into beds, Lucy pondered yet again. They deserved to know a mother who embraced her complexities, so why was she still reluctant to confront the challenge of sharing her truth with the world? The moment of exposure lingered just beyond her reach, urging her to take the leap. What awaited on the other side of her hesitation was not simply fear, but perhaps clarity. The morning sun warmed Lucy's face as she awoke with an unusual clarity. She had spent countless hours wrestling with her insecurities, but today felt different. Today, she would embrace the path of authenticity she had begun to carve, contoured by both fear and hope. The night before had ignited a fire within her, an eagerness to share her journey, and the thought of connecting her past with her present felt less daunting. Entering the kitchen, the familiar comforting chaos of breakfast preparation wrapped around her, but Lucy had gleaned something new from it: the notion that community, even in its smallest forms, could be remarkably powerful. She glanced at her daughter, Lily, who hummed softly to herself while stacking toys, an image of pure expression and joy. In that moment, Lucy felt a pull and urge to exemplify to Lily the art of revealing oneself without fear. With intentions set, she established a modest daily routine for her, writing a commitment to unleash creative energy before the day's responsibilities cloaked her spirit. As she brewed her morning coffee, she mentally outlined her next steps. Seeking clarity for her narrative, she would write about the intertwined legacies of her husband's family and her aspirations for Lily, the resilient daughter she dreamt of supporting through love and unwavering belief. Settled at her laptop, Lucy inhaled deeply and began to write. Words rushed forth, unbidden and alive, forming connections between shadows of her past and the light of her aspirations. The act of writing became exhilarating, a cathartic release that transformed her unease into empowerment. Each keystroke both acknowledged her struggles and projected the desired future, weaving a stronger narrative of resilience. Days passed, and with them, small triumphs bloomed. Lucy's resolve bloomed alongside her writings, expanding into tangible commitments. She accepted invitations to community events and, for the first time, considered sharing her work publicly. Encouraged by Jonah's mentorship, she began leading small writing workshops. To her surprise, she was not merely guiding others, she too was learning, growing from their shared experiences. One evening, as she prepared for a workshop, a familiar anxious flutter tugged at her stomach. But instead of succumbing to fear, she confronted it decisively. The earlier trepidation felt like a ghost from a life that no longer defined her. In less than a month, she evolved from Lucy the waitress to Lucy the inspired storyteller, transforming her narrative amidst the backdrop of hope and vulnerability. The workshop night arrived, and Lucy stood nervously in front of an intimate group of aspiring writers. She had crafted her introduction deliberately, recalling not just her journey, but how creativity blossomed amid struggle. Sharing the stories of her husband's legacy felt like peeling back layers, illuminating paths she wished to tread. Each story she shared resonated with others who connected with the themes of resilience and renewal. That night, she received validation she never imagined possible. The gratitude pouring from her participants filled the space around them with warmth. Each appreciative nod, every lingering question that hinted at curiosity reaffirmed her growth not only for herself, but for those who found comfort in her words. In the weeks that followed, Lucy's workshops flourished. She published a short piece that intertwined the legacy of her husband's past with her present aspirations and shared it online. Responses flooded in, and a local publication recognized her talent, asking to feature her writing. As her confidence solidified, she realized she had transformed her old, solitary fears into bridges of connectivity, transformations born from the very stories that once felt heavy with burden. One evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Lucy finally sat in front of a full-length mirror, staring at the woman reflected back. Empowered by her craft, she had learned to claim her narrative and her identity. She was no longer simply Lucy the waitress. She was also an insightful storyteller and mentor, a woman fully engaged in life and its myriad discoveries. With a newfound recognition of self and a rich tapestry of writing to share, Lucy felt ready to navigate anything that lay ahead. She had conquered her fears by intertwining her past and present, embracing the delicate balance of storytelling and vulnerability. The momentum behind her growth would not wane. It was built on the strength of revelation and connection. As she closed her laptop that night, a smile graced her face. The journey had not only led her to reclaim her voice, it revealed a future filled with endless potential. No longer trapped by fear, she was prepared for whatever new challenges might come. Lucy had achieved more than acceptance. She had found purpose and unwavering belief that vulnerability could be the foundation of strength. Now was her moment to shine. If you resonated with Lucy's journey, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It really makes a difference. Comment your thoughts and reactions about Lucy's transformation, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support, because only true fans of personal, overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions. Don't wait even one more second.